Hello, baseball fans. It's 1 o'clock in the on the East Coast, 12 noon Central, 11 Mountain, and 10 o'clock Pacific. As we chat World Series preview with Dodger Jason. Before I bring him in, please subscribe, like, and share the Spunky Spectrum Sports and the Drive to the Top Productions YouTube pages. We greatly appreciate it. Also, check out the Big D, yours truly, Spotify and Apple. Joining us to talk 2024 World Series, Dodger Jason. Jason, welcome. And
Thank you.
what you're going to be doing Friday night?
Well, let's see. I'm going to be multitasking, Dylan, when I'm not going to be covering a local high school football game because I'm a sports reporter here in the central San Joaquin Valley. I'm going to be going back and forth between checking the score on my phone to see what I know. I won't be able to watch game one of the World Series, but it is what it is. But at least I have the beauties of this thing here, so I'll be checking the score fastidiously to see who's winning or losing.
You could always check out the Fox Sports app.
Yes, I could. And I have the Fox Sports app on my phone, so I'll probably defer to that because ESPN's not on my good side right now.
Yeah. Plus, you already are familiar with one of the announcers because Joe Davis does Dodger home games.
Yes, he does. And I got to be honest with you, he was getting a lot of vitriol from everyone on the Twitter universe who said that he was being biased towards the Dodgers in both his division series and championship series coverage. I may be biased when I say I sincerely disagree with what they say about him. But, hey, Joe, in this day and age of broadcasting, Joe's one of the best. He's top. I would put him top 5, maybe top 10. And also he does outstanding job covering NFL games for Fox. So, I've been happy with his coverage so far. And yeah, like you said, I get to listen to him all season long because he does Dodger home games. He'll shift back and forth between his duties with Fox and the Dodgers, but it's been a joy listening to him call games.
Yeah. It seems like all the good announcers get stick nowadays, but
Yep.
actually, I've heard this to be true. The Dodger play-by-play announcer actually must be neutral during games. You can't show favoritism one way or another.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, and I don't know if he has to sign some type of a disclosure stating such, but you're absolutely right. And obviously, it makes sense. You don't want him up there going, "Yeah, Dodgers, go blue, think blue," the whole broadcast. That the optics of that aren't very good for the national audience.
Even at 3 o'clock in the morning, but that's neither here or there, right?
Right. Exactly. Yep.
This comes a day after a sad announcement. We both heard Dodger legend Fernando Valenzuela, otherwise known as Fernando Mania, passed away on the eve of the World Series. And I mean, when I heard that, I'm like, what? I'm like, how could that happen?
Yeah. Honestly, I'm not too surprised, Dylan. He made the announcement, I think I want to say just before the playoffs started, he made the announcement that he was stepping aside as a broadcaster for the Dodgers Spanish language broadcast with Jaime Jarrín. And when I saw a photo of him the day that it was taken when he announced he stepped down, he had a press conference and he looked really, really bad. He was really thin, really frail. I could hardly recognize him. And when you saw photos of Fernando when he was younger, even up to a few years ago, you could definitely tell it was Fernando. But looking at him, he just did not look good at all. And when he made the announcement that he was stepping aside to deal with some health-related issues, I think everybody saw the writing on the wall. But still, it's very sad. And not just for Dodgers fans, but I think for sports fans in general, because, Fernando transcended sports and culture. When he came into the league in 1981, still the only pitcher in baseball history to win both the Cy Young Award or Rookie of the Year award and MVP award in the same season. I'm sorry. When he came into the league and Fernando Mania burst onto the scene in Los Angeles, it was literally a cultural explosion. And for those of you who live in the Midwest, live back east, and aren't familiar with the cultural landscape of Los Angeles, especially in the early 1980s, well, even going back before then to the 50s, 60s, and 70s, after the Dodgers moved from Brooklyn and they went to Los Angeles in 58, the Dodgers really became synonymous with cultural identity and social identity in LA because they had such a multi-ethnic roster consisting of guys like Sandy Koufax, and then of course you had Manny Mota, you had Maury Wills, you had so many players that related to so many different socioeconomic backgrounds in Los Angeles. They've always been identifiable with that city's different backgrounds. And then when Fernando Mania burst on the scene in '81, he really latched on to, he brought the Latino and the Mexican fan base to Los Angeles. And it, like I said, Dylan, it was a cultural explosion. And even on days when Fernando didn't pitch, there would be fans that would show up to Dodger Stadium just to see him, whether he walked out of the bullpen, whether he walked out of the dugout to sign autographs. They sold out every single home game during his tenure there in Los Angeles. And I'm old enough to remember watching him pitch, but fortunately or unfortunately, I was young enough not to remember his '81 rookie season, which is still one of the greatest ever. I remember his no-hitter in 1990 against the St. Louis Cardinals when, ironically enough, he got Pedro Guerrero to ground out for the final out of that game. And then Vince Scully chimed in and famously said, "If you have a sombrero, throw it to the sky." And, I truly believe that if there are a lot of people out there who say that Fernando should be in the Hall of Fame. And when you look at his career as a whole, while you can make an argument for him, I think had he not dealt with shoulder injuries the last, I think, 3 or 4 seasons of his career, he could have been a first ballot Hall of Famer. At the end of his career, he had bounced around with a couple of different teams. He played with the Orioles. I think he played with the Angels. And I want to say he also played with the Padres, but don't quote me on that. But yeah, Dylan, he meant so much. He was one of the biggest sports stars at the height of his career. And in Los Angeles, the sports stars you had to choose from back then, Magic Johnson and James Worthy, Wayne Gretzky in hockey, and obviously you had USC football, which was big in the '80s. The Raiders were relevant back then when they had Marcus Allen in the '80s. The Rams had Eric Dickerson. So there were a lot of sports stars for fans to latch onto. But Fernando was without a doubt the biggest one at that time. And so it's sad to see him go. He was only 63. And so he still had a lot of life left in him. He was still very popular in the LA area. And he would still go to collectible shows. He would sign autographs. He would make public appearances on behalf of the team at fundraisers and events. He was just a likable guy. And what made him more unique too, Dylan, was that he was able to attract the white kids like me to him, and that says something because while he was attracted so much to the Latino Mexican demographic, he got a lot of the white kids to follow him and to be enthusiastic about his career, and I was one of them. I'm still one of them. So it's extremely sad to know that he's gone. His legacy will live on, but again, not surprised because he did not look well at all. And Fernando, you're going to be missed, buddy. I'm going to toss my sombrero to the sky for you. You will be missed.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, Fernando wasn't even supposed to start opening day 1981, but Tom Lasorda came to him and said you're going to start, and then he threw 5 shutouts in his first 8 starts.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And Fernando was actually discovered by a legendary Dodger scout by the name of Mike Brito. Mike Brito, I won't get into all the guys that he signed that turned into Hall of Fame caliber all-star talents, but Mike Brito discovered Fernando when he was down in Navajo, Sonora, Mexico, which is where Fernando was from, and saw Fernando tossing small makeshift balls against the wall. And he saw him throwing them so fast that he literally went up to him and he got a glove and he said, "Let's go ahead and throw a couple to me and let's see how you do." And he came in and just blew Mike Brito away with a fastball. And of course, Fernando was legendary for that screwball. He turned the screwball into one of the most difficult pitches to hit. And what his iconic trademark or his iconic symbol was, every time he would wind up and deliver, yeah, he'd look up into the sky as if to say, grace or God. He would always look up into the sky. And so every mural you see of Fernando Valenzuela in Los Angeles, you'll see him like this, looking up into the sky. And I'm a lefty just like he is, so I'm able to kind of, imitate what he did. But a lot of kids did that too. In Little League, when I played Little League, there were a lot of pitchers that would look up into the sky. And every time they would do that, it's like, okay, that's Fernando's influence there.
Yeah, and then how about in that World Series? I mean, World Series. I wasn't around for that World Series against the Yankees, but actually, I remember the stat. I know the stats where Mike Sosa actually pinched in for Steve Yeager because Steve Yeager didn't know Spanish and Sosa did, and I don't
Yep.
know what that's what changed Fernando, but maybe just changing catchers and someone who knew Spanish made a difference.
Yeah, I think it did, Dylan. You're not too far off on that. In fact, you're actually correct on that. Every pitcher has a certain style, a certain way they throw the ball, and every pitcher, well, not all of them have their own personalized catchers. They have a guy that they prefer to throw the ball to more because the catcher understands him, and vice versa. And Socha was exactly that way with Fernando. Not only from the cultural standpoint, the fact that Socha could converse with him in Espanol, but Socha just knew his stuff the best, and he felt comfortable throwing the ball to Socha. Just like when Greg Maddux pitched in his heyday with the Braves, his preferred catcher of choice was Eddie Perez, not Javi Lopez, because Eddie Perez knew Greg Maddux's repertoire, his mechanics, his windup delivery the best, and so he would go with Eddie Perez. And even in modern day Dodgers baseball, Clayton Kershaw always preferred pitching to Austin Barnes. And Austin Barnes honestly should be
Or
coaching
EJ
John
Ellis.
North.
Or EJ
Yeah, he
Ellis.
should. Yeah, Austin Barnes should be coaching John North High School senior baseball varsity baseball team, to be honest with you. But because Clayton Kershaw and Barnes have a rapport together, that's why he's still on the team. And that's how it was with Socha and Fernando. They had a friendship that transcended race, it transcended culture. It was a true relationship, and that's what pitchers and catchers have.
And you think pitchers, yeah, we look at like today's starters and they go with 89 pitches and it's like you're done. Fernando threw 47 pitches in Game 3 of the '81 World Series.
Yeah, 147 in just game one of game three. I'm sorry, you said of the '81 World Series. So yeah, that's never going to be done ever again. You're never going to see workhorses throw that many. I wish they would, for crying out loud. But yeah, that was a truly amazing feat too. And it's interesting because I eventually think all those innings that he had on his arm eventually came back to haunt him, because like I said earlier,
particularly early in his career, a lot like Doc Gooden, because both guys were like the pitching stars of the early mid '80s, and all of a sudden it's like, what happened?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Fernando's career started to taper down there a little bit. I want to say mid to late '80s is when he started to taper off, and then the Dodgers eventually cut him loose. I think it was after '88 was when they cut him loose. But so yeah, and had he not, I think all that wear and tear affected his shoulder, because he had a lot of shoulder problems, rotator cuff problems, and labrum problems. So, and like I said, had he not dealt with those injuries, he probably could have been a first ballot Hall of Famer. And I mean, you look at all the great accomplishments that he had, you can make an argument for him being a Hall of Famer more as a cultural sports icon than an athlete for what he did on the field, because he what he meant to Dodgers baseball, what he meant to baseball in general in the '80s is very comparable to what Roberto Clemente meant to the game when he came up with the Pittsburgh Pirates.
And you imagine if Fernando would have been around with social media nowadays, and now, I mean, instead of Shohei Ohtani being the star, Fernando Mania is the star.
Yeah, I think so. I think so, Dylan. And the interesting thing about baseball more than any other sport in North America is that it is a true cultural game. And even though the NBA has branched out, culturally, we've seen a lot of European players come into the NBA, and the NFL obviously is making strides to extend its cultural reach by playing regular season and preseason games in places like Mexico and Puerto Rico and England and everywhere else. Baseball has always had that cultural reach. It's always extended beyond our borders, and it's transcended generations in other countries. The NBA and the NFL and even the NHL, to an extent, haven't really done that as well as Major League Baseball has done throughout its history. And yeah, Fernando is part of that bridging of the cultural gaps. And it's interesting too, because a lot of people don't realize that Dodger Stadium, where it sits in Chavez Ravine, was actually it came about controversially, because there were in Chavez Ravine, before Dodger Stadium was built, there were a lot of. I'm sorry, you were going to say something?
No, no, no. Go
Okay,
ahead.
sorry, you're pointing at me. My bad. To continue what I was saying, before Dodger Stadium was built, Chavez Ravine was the home to a lot of migrant Mexican farm workers, and they were forced off of that land, off of their property, when Walter O'Malley decided he wanted to build Dodger Stadium there. The city of LA literally went in, knocked on doors, and stamped notices on those families' doors telling them they had 30 days to get out, or if they didn't, they were going to be forced out. And so when Fernando mania broke out, there was actually a lot of criticism about that, because he was pitching on a site that used to be the home for hundreds of migrant farm workers from Mexico. And Fernando was always very proud of his culture, always very proud of his heritage. He was one of 12 children, never forgot where he came from, did a lot for the Mexican community there in Los Angeles. And so there was a lot of criticism about him pitching in Dodger Stadium, the site that a lot of people viewed as being a major site of oppression to Mexican families. But regardless of that, though, Dylan, he is part of that cultural identity that Major League Baseball has had for, God, well over 60, 70 years.
Yeah, and even though Fernando's no longer with us, I don't think he's ever going to be forgotten.
No, he never will, especially not in Los Angeles, but especially around the rest of the game too. You're right. He'll never be forgotten. The Dodgers retired his number 34 jersey last year, so I'm glad that he was alive to see that. I did hear that Rob Manfred plans to throw some kind of a tribute out there to him during Game One of the World Series. I think it'll be during the pregame ceremonies. He better freaking do it right. That's all I got to say. So I know they have plans to memorialize him before the World Series, but you're right. There won't. I don't think there will ever be another Fernando again and another Fernando mania. What it was and what it still is, it's bigger than the game itself.
Yeah, so he will be missed. So going back
Yeah.
to this year's World Series, the Dodgers are in their fourth World Series in the last 8 years, and surprise, surprise, they faced the old foes, the New York Yankees. This feels like 1977, 78, or 81. So you excited for this series against the Bronx Bombers?
I am excited. I am excited. I mean, this as a Dodgers fan, this is something that we've longed for a very long time. I don't know if other baseball or sports fans around the country or the world, have wanted this World Series. I'm sure a lot of them have, but me personally, yeah, I'm excited for it, because not only just because of the star factor. You have, Judge, Soto, and Stanton wearing pinstripes, and then wearing Dodger blue. You have Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, and Shohei Ohtani. 3 MVPs on one side, 3 MVP caliber talents on the other. I mean, for star caliber players, Dylan, it doesn't get any better than that. But one thing that has me more excited about the World Series is I want to see what player steps out of the woodwork to make the biggest contribution to either the Yankees or the Dodgers, because I would have not told you in a million years that Tommy Edman would have been the National League Championship Series MVP for the Dodgers. Nobody saw that coming, even as good a ball player as Edman is. Oh, you did. Okay, sorry. I stand corrected.
Hey, I told you this the moment you got Tommy Edman. You're going to love Tommy Edman, switch hitter, and he hits left-handed pitching. And what happened in Game 6?
Lo and behold, he hit left-handed pitching, he switch hit, and he put the ball in play, which is something you don't see a lot of.
And he just put the ball in play, hit one over the wall.
Yes, it did. Yes, it did. So you were right, and thank you, sir. I'm glad you brought those comments to my attention because I am not worthy. I am not worthy, Dylan. Thank you. You're right. And I had seen Edmund play in St. Louis, so I was always impressed with his skill set with the Cardinals. But I will be honest with you that when he came back from that wrist injury, I didn't know what he was going to be or how long it would take him to just get his baseball body back into him. But yeah, it popped back up at the right time, and thank God. So I'm going to be excited to see which player, other than our star players, are going to come up and contribute. Will we see another Edman, or will we see a Gleyber Torres contribute big? Will we see, a Kirk Gibson type player? Will we see Freddie Freeman hobble up to home plate on one leg or one ankle and smash a home run in the bottom of the ninth with runners on and 2 outs? So I don't know. We'll see. It's going to be fun. It'll be interesting.
Well, obviously, stall-driven World Series, but there's no bigger stall in baseball, maybe in all of sports right now. I mean, Pat Mahomes might have a compelling case than Shohei Ohtani, but I mean, Shohei Ohtani, first year in LA, 50-50, and then literally anytime a man's on base, he gets a hit with men on base. So how will Shohei Ohtani fare in his first World Series?
To be honest with you, I think he's going to be extremely excited to the point where I wouldn't be surprised if he goes 1 for 4 or even 0 for 4. Now, the reason I say that is because we started to see how excited he was to be in the postseason when he played San Diego and when he played New York. Now, I know he homered against the Padres. He had a decent series against the Mets, but the point I'm trying to make is that because he was so excited, he tried to do too much. And in the moment, in the at-bats that he had where he did strike out, you could see that he had only one mindset, and that was to go yard. He wasn't thinking about getting on base or base hit. He was trying to crank it out. So while the moment has been big for him, eventually he adjusts to it, and he's able to do what he does so well, which is make adjustments. So I think he's in for a good series, but I wouldn't be surprised if maybe he gets a little too excited and tries to do too much in his first couple of at-bats.
I mean, I'm trying to think of Japanese stalls in the World Series. I mean, Daisuke was with the Red Sox in 2007, but Hideo Nomo never pitched in the World Series. I mean, Udalva did with the Dodgers, and that was a fiasco in 2017.
Yes, it was.
Although we know what happened with the Astros cheating, but that's a story for another day.
Yeah, we found out that you didn't tip his pitches the way the media thought he did many years later.
Oops.
Yeah, and all of us Dodgers fans owe Yu Darvish a huge apology, by the way. He never got that from us, but we all owe him an apology.
Yeah, didn't like a few other teams cheat?
Well, yeah. I mean, the Red Sox did it in 2018 when they won the World Series against LA. LA went back, and they even admitted it. They even admitted that they used their own version of a sign stealing scheme to win the 2018 World Series. And that's ironic, Dylan, because who was on that 18 Red Sox team that is now beloved in Los Angeles, but Mookie Betts. Mookie Betts was on that team. He goes to LA, does well for us. Hey, all is forgiven. But and even the Dodgers several years ago, they got busted for trying to steal signs. Every team at some point or another has tried to cheat the system. The old saying goes, Dylan, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. The problem with the Astros is they got caught red-handed, whereas other teams they were used a little more subterfuge to hide their sign stealing scandals.
I mean, if you can catch signs with your own eyes, that's one thing. But if you use like back in the day the the New York Giants actually used like a military camera at the Polo Grounds doing their 51 pennant
Hmm.
doing their pennant run against
Yep.
the Brooklyn Dodgers.
Yep. Yeah, they
If
did.
that's not if that's not cheating, what is?
Well, I'll double you up on that one. Shortly after interleague play was instituted in Major League Baseball, the Dodgers got busted for putting a clubhouse attendant. They would stick him in the outfield seats, either in left field or right field, regardless of where they were playing. I think the team that got busted against was I want to say the Red Sox. They had played the Red Sox in an interleague series, and LA I think beat them like 11-4, and they were hitting every single pitch that their pitchers were throwing. And Boston's manager at the time, I think, was Grady Little, and he started scratching his head saying, "Gee, they're teeing off on these like they know what's coming." Well, lo and behold, they found out the Dodgers put a lowly music clubhouse attendant, stuck him beyond the right field pole there, Pesky's pole, with a pair of binoculars, and he was looking at the Red Sox pitcher's grip on the ball and trying to get a cue as to what he was going to throw. Well, he would then cue in with his cell phone via text message to one of the guys in the clubhouse, "Hey, here's what he's going to throw next." And that's how they got busted for their sign stealing scandals. So people tend to forget that, but LA's been guilty of it too.
So, I mean, despite the Dodgers having one of baseball's best payrolls, this seems felt different. I mean, it seems like the Dodgers have good starters go like 3 games and somebody gets hurt, but this team feels different. I mean, yes, Tyler Glass now, Clayton Kershaw. I mean, you could probably tell us who's not pitching for the Dodgers this weekend.
Yep, four fifths of their starting rotation is not pitching in the postseason. The only guy on their rotation right now who made the opening day rotation coming out of spring training is Yoshinobu Yamamoto. That's it.
And he missed half the season with a bum shoulder.
He missed half the season with a bum shoulder. We didn't get Jack Flaherty until the trade deadline. Emmett Sheehan didn't pitch at all this season, Tommy John surgery. Dustin May made only, I want to say, 3 or 4 appearances before he got shelved again. Tony Gonsolin's been out all year with recovering from Tommy John surgery. Clayton Kershaw only made a bevy of starts in August before he was shut down again with the bone spur in his toe. So yeah, Dylan, what the Dodgers have been able to do with that patchwork pitching staff is unprecedented. We've never seen anything like this in postseason baseball, where literally a manager like Dave Roberts has had to piecemeal everything together at the last minute and mix and match different guys and go to the bullpen so much. And, in some ways it's good, but in other ways it's bad too, because you want to see traditional starters go out there and be dominant and shut out the opponent for 6 or 7 or even 8 innings. I mean, hell, the best pitching performance I ever saw in the postseason was when Jack Morris shut down the Atlanta Braves 1-0 pitching for the Minnesota Twins. He threw a complete game shutout. That is still one of the greatest pitching postseason performances ever. Of any guy named Koufax, Gibson, Drysdale, Marichal, still one of the greatest, and I remember watching it still. And as much as we would still love to see that, it's obviously not going to happen anymore. And look, you guys know how critical I've been of Dave Roberts and his inability to manage a bullpen and a rotation in October. I'm going to issue a large apology here and have a huge slice of humble pie, because I'm going to commend Dave Roberts for what he's done. He has actually pressed all the right buttons. He has he's made the right moves when he's had to with his bullpen, bringing in guys in certain situations. And he's done stuff right now that we haven't seen him do in previous postseasons. And to put that more into light, Dylan, I was listening to Game 4 of the NLCS on the radio. I couldn't watch it on TV. Rick Monday, great Dodger player, calls as a color analyst for them. Rick Monday said that Dave Roberts is managing this year is not the analytical managing we've seen before. The lineups he's made, the changes he's made, the bullpens, the decision to bring guys in at certain key points in the game. This is Dave Roberts actually managing. This is not Andrew Friedman bringing a lineup sheet down to him and telling him, my computer says this is what we should go with. Dave has bucked that trend and has started to do what he is supposed to do, which is manage. And so I commend Dave for what he's so far. He's pushed all the right buttons. And while there were a couple of hiccups that he had against San Diego in the division series and New York in the championship series, by and large, he's mixed and matched with the right combinations. Although I didn't agree with him going with Kopech as the opener in Game 5 in the NLCS.
Well, Game 6.
Or Game 6. Yeah, I'm sorry. Kopech was the opener in Game 6, not Game 5. Well, I didn't agree with that. The rest of the bullpen, as taxed and as tired as these guys are, have done what they've had to do. At times they've bent and not broken. At times they've had to be extremely flexible with who they pitch to. But Dave's made all the right calls so far, and I hope it still holds true when they play the Yankees.
Yeah, and whether it be using Kopech, whether it be using thinking who Evan Phillips, whether it be using who's the sinker ball with the not the slider but the pitch nobody can hit now.
Let's see. God, I know he's on the tip of my tongue. Definitely Joe Kelly. Kelly's injured.
I think Joe Kelly's hurt.
Yeah, Joe Kelly's not even on the. He's out for the rest of the year with a shoulder problem. Here, let me pull up their roster. I just had a brain fart all of a sudden. Because I know what you're talking about.
Blake Trinan, thank you. Blake Trinan.
Oh, Blake Trinan, yeah. And Dylan, Blake Trinan's interesting because he did not pitch at all in 2022 and 2023. And the Dodgers could have easily cut ties with him. Any other team would have kicked him to the curb. But the Dodgers stuck with him through those 2 injury-filled seasons. They brought him back this season, took a chance on him, and he's definitely made the most of it. And the reason why Dave started Kopech as the Game 1 opener in Game 6 of the championship series is because of the combined batting averages of the Mets' big bats, Francisco Lindor, Pete Alonso. I think Alonso has a career 140 batting average against Kopech, and then I want to say for Lindor, I think career-wise he's batting just 195. So again, Dave went with strategy, not with analytics. He had Kopech as the Game 1 starter in Game 6 because he historically has shut down those big bats that the Mets have in their lineups. And Kopech really didn't do that bad. I mean, he gave up 1 hit. He kept the runners on the bases. He did give up the 1 run. But by and large, he didn't do a bad job. He got wild, which is what he does every now and then. Got a wild hair up his nose. But he was able to recover and limit the damage to just 1 run. So I thought, for all intents and purposes, he did what he was supposed to do. He kept the Mets off the scoreboard. He didn't allow the lead to become inflated in the early innings there. So, yeah, he did what he was supposed to do.
Yeah, and with this Dodger team, like seemingly every team, there were scrappy guys like Kike Hernandez. Like Kike Hernandez should just not play in the regular season, but he turns into Mr. October. Like, what does he have? 14 postseason home runs for the Dodgers. Max Muncy set a record with what? Getting on base in 12 consecutive plate appearances against the Mets.
Yeah, and actually Kike now has 15 career postseason home runs because he went deep against the Mets in Game 5, I want to say. He hit a solo shot in the top of the 7th inning, if I'm not too much mistaken. That was the one game where, because both the Mets and the Dodgers had traded butt kickings back and forth, 8-0, 10-0, 12-2, something like that. I think Kike had a massive solo shot in the top of the 7th in that game that the Dodgers ended up losing. But
that was the weirdest series I've seen because there were no save opportunities.
Right. I don't know if we've ever had a championship series where there haven't been save opportunities before like that. But you're right. I mean, Game 1, the Dodgers won 8-0. Game 2, the Mets come back and wallop them. Game 3, Dodgers come back. So yeah, you're right. It was literally about offense. And the Dodgers, by the way, scored 46 runs in the National League Championship Series. That is a record. No other team.
And walked like 42 times.
And walked 42 times. You're right. No other team in the history of the National League has ever done that in postseason history. That is absolutely asinine and absurd.
So, I mean, Yankees, we know who's on the other side. Some guy named Soto, some guy named Judge, some guy named Stanton. How do the Dodgers get those monsters out?
Well, unfortunately, the only way they can get them out is by doing the one thing they may not want to do, which is called pitch to contact. They have to be aggressive with them. The Dodgers, Dylan, the Dodgers run into problems with their pitching when they walk a lot of guys. They, as a rotation and as a unit as a whole, they put a lot of ducks on the pond. And with Soto and Judge and Stanton, you know that these guys are going to be first ball, dead ball hitters. They're going to be looking for fastballs down the middle any chance that they can get. How they're going to approach them is they have to be aggressive with them. They can't back down because the minute they back down, that's when the batters are going to win the contest. And even though the Dodgers pitchers may not have the oomph to dominate those guys, they have no choice but to be aggressive with them. So they're going to have to challenge them. I wouldn't be surprised if we see um, I wouldn't be surprised if we see a lot of off-speed stuff, especially from Yamamoto, because we know Yamamoto is going to start game 2. And so that is going to be imperative that he can get his location, his timing, and his command down. Because if he doesn't, that game's going to be over before it ever begins. So the Dodgers pitchers, regardless of how good they are going to have to be aggressive. They can't be passive because the minute they do, the Yankees are going to own them coming right out of the gate.
Well, good news. Yamamoto was great in his start in the Bronx. I think he threw 7 shutout innings.
He did. Yeah. In fact, when LA played the Yankees back in June, we took 2 out of 3 against them. And he had a start against them where I think he scattered 6 hits over 6 2/3, walked only 1 batter, struck out 6. It was a fairly good economical start for him. And that start that I remember, he threw a lot of off speed, a lot of changeups, a lot of sinker balls inside, down at the knees. And guys like Stanton and Soto had difficulties with that because they don't have a lot of cold zones, but those are some of their cold zones where if you jam them up at the knees inside, they're going to swing, and 9 times out of 10, they're going to miss it. So, hopefully he can do the same thing here with success against the Yanks in the series.
Do we expect a couple of the Dodger injured pitchers, particularly Vesia and Gratterall, to be back for the World Series?
Well, as of this morning, Dave Roberts said that they are game time decisions.
Oh,
So
that's my favorite terminology in football. Trust me, if you play fantasy football, you know what that means.
right, exactly. That for the fantasy player that never bodes well up until game time because you got to make out your roster and you don't know what the hell you're going to do until you figure out what's going on. So yeah, Dave said Vesia and Gratterall are going to be game time decisions. I'll be honest with you, I want Vesia back in that bullpen more than I want Gratterall because it's imperative that we have more than one left-hander in the bullpen right now, which is Anthony Bonda, especially against a guy like Juan Soto. And Vesia had a really good bounce-back season this year. He's dominant when he wants to be. The reason he was kept off the championship roster is because he had a rib injury. So fortunately, it's not elbow or shoulder related. But again, Doc being very ambiguous, saying it's a game time decision. So they are literally going to wait until, a day before, maybe even hours before, to announce whether or not they're going to be on the roster.
And with Gratterall, I mean, I'm surprised Gratterall could throw without getting pitch clock violations because a few years ago, Gratterall would take 3.5 days between pitches.
Yeah, I know. It kind of brought back fond memories of Pedro Baez in 2017 World Series against the Astros. Watching Pedro Baez throw a pitch was like watching extended time. He would take literally 30 minutes in between fastballs to throw.
Thank goodness Pedro Baez never faced Normal Garcia Paul. Otherwise, you could have flown the London between pitches.
Yeah, right. I hear you on that one. So yeah, it brought back fond memories of Pedro Baez. And then there's another pitcher, I don't know if you remember, played a long time ago with the Cubs and your Tampa Bay Rays by the name of Steve Traxel. And when Steve Traxel pitched with the Cubs, he was so slow in his windup and delivery and his time that he would take to throw a ball that Cubs fans would literally shout out, "Throw the ball, throw the ball." So, yes. Again, reminiscing. That brought back Gratterall brought back fond memories of Baez and Axel Traxel there.
Would we expect Gradwell to be activated for this fall classic?
The only way they're going to activate him, Dylan, is if he is 100% healthy and ready to go. It's same thing with Vesia too, because you're not going to want to take two damaged trailers and put them out there with a broken hitch. Gratterall, and even if they activate him and he's not fully healthy, I don't see him pitching more than being more than a situational guy, coming in and facing your three batters, but coming in at certain times. So, for example, if there's a situation where they have runners on and 2 outs, and Doc needs to go to a situational guy, maybe he brings in Gratterall in that spot. But I would prefer to see Vesia come back more than Brewstar, just because we have enough right-handers to get the job done. We need another lefty to take that pressure off Anthony Bonda, who's done a fantastic job. You can't ask Bonda to go out there and do more than what he did in the division series and the championship series.
And then offensively against the Yankees, obviously same strategy. Be patient and then wait out the Yankees. Hopefully get your pitch and hit the balls when they're not.
And that is going to be also important against Garrett Cole in Game 1. And I don't know who the Yankees Game 2 starter is. Do you know who it is?
I have no idea.
Okay, so yeah, we know for a fact that Cole's going to start Game 1. And against Garrett Cole, if you're patient against him, if you're patient against him and you choose and pick, you're going to have success. But if the Dodgers get up there and they're passive and they let him dominate the at-bats, it's going to be a long day. And look, Cole is not unhittable as he once was in his heyday, cheating days with the Astros. But
Cole won the Cy Young last year.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, Cole's great. He won the Cy Young Award. You're right. He's no slouch. So the Dodgers, I imagine, will come out and do what they do. They're going to pick and choose. They're going to be patient at times, but they have to know when to be aggressive at the right times. There have been a lot of occasions where I've seen their hitters go up there and swing on 2-2 counts where they didn't have to swing, or they swung at the first pitch in a situation where they didn't necessarily have to be aggressive on the first pitch. So that's why I say it's imperative that they pick and choose, literally pick their own battles. They're going to have to decide, okay, when to be aggressive, when not to be aggressive. And against Garrett Cole, that will be really important, because like any great pitcher, if he settles in and he starts finding his groove early, it's going to be a long afternoon in the Bronx for the Dodgers.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a series I think baseball needed, because we've had series where, like last year's World Series took place in Phoenix and Arlington. I mean, no respect to the Rangers and D-backs, but there hasn't been a star-driven World Series like this in forever.
You're right. And what's also going to be interesting too is that because this is the series that Major League Baseball itself has wanted for a long time, everyone's predicting the ratings for this series are going to go sky high through the roof, which they will. But what will be more telling is, are the ratings going to be higher in countries like Japan and Mexico and Puerto Rico and the Latin American countries than they are here in the United States? Because as we all know, Major League Baseball has had a difficult time attracting younger fans to the game. And while the game has grown exponentially in terms of attendance at the ballparks, baseball, we have to keep in mind from a media standpoint, is more of a regional broadcasted sport rather than the NFL, which is national and global. So baseball relies more on regional broadcasting dollars to rake in most of their broadcasting revenues. So it'll be interesting to see how the national audience in the U.S. will drive these ratings versus the fans in Japan, Korea, so on, because we know the international fan base is going to watch. But will the American audience tune in and drive those ratings? That's going to be very telling as well.
Quickly before we end, Jason,
Yeah.
You know me, I'm the trivia savant, so I figured we'd give each other a trivia question.
Do it.
Do you want to go first, or do you want me to give you one first?
Why don't you go ahead and shoot first, if you don't mind, please?
All right. What Dodger pitcher shut out the Yankees in Game 7 in the 1955 World Series?
What Dodgers pitcher shut out the Yankees in Game 5 of the 55 World Series?
7.
Oh,
7.
Game 7, 55 World Series. I am going to say, if I remember correctly, I want to say it was Carl Spooner, wasn't it?
No. Johnny
Uh,
Padre.
Johnny Padres. God dang it! I literally had him as my first choice in my mind, but then I deferred to Spooner because he had a good postseason, I think, that year in '55. But okay, Padres, I stand corrected. You got me on that one.
Now, can you get me?
Okay. Does it have to be related to the Dodgers or anything baseball in general?
It could be anything baseball related.
Anything baseball related? Okay, let's see here. This is going to be a tough one. Give me a second here. I'm sorry. Hold on. Give me another second here, please. Oh, I know. Okay, hold on. I'm pulling it up right now. This is a good one that I saw the other day. Okay, here you go, Dylan. Who is the only player in Major League Baseball history to hit for the cycle in a postseason game?
How far back do I have to go?
Not too far back at all. In fact, I'll give you a hint. He played for the Boston Red Sox, and this happened within the last decade.
That took away my wow.
Did I stump you on this one?
I was thinking Petey. Petey. Dustin Pedroia.
It's so easy to defer to Dustin Pedroia, but the only player who's hit for the cycle in a Major League Baseball postseason game is Brock Holt. Did it in Game 3. Oh, actually, sorry, in the postseason, not World Series. My bad. He hit for the cycle in Game 3 of the 2018 American League Division Series. So not World Series. I stand corrected.
Wait, against the Yankees. If that's 2018, that would have been the Yankees of Game 3 of the Division Series.
Yeah, let me see if I can find a better World Series one. Hold on. My bad. Okay, so it looks like that no player in baseball history has hit for the cycle in the World Series. So Brock Holt is the only player to hit for the cycle in the postseason. And yeah, that was the Division Series against the Yankees in 2018. I know. I'm trying to think of another one too.
At least he didn't hit for the cycle in that 18-inning game 6 years ago.
Yeah. Oh well, here's a better one for you. Who was the last pitcher to throw a no-hitter in the World Series?
Don Lawson.
Nope. Try Roy Halladay, Philadelphia Phillies.
No, in the World Series. Well, Doc did it in the playoffs, but Lawson did it in the World Series.
Oh, maybe Halladay did it in the Division Series too. I could be mistaken as well.
Yeah, Doc didn't. Yeah, Doc no-hit the Reds in Game 1, the 2010.
Oh yeah.
BS.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Larson then was the last guy to throw a perfect game, and that was in '55.
The Astros no-hit the Phillies a couple years ago, but they used multiple pitchers.
Yeah, they did. They used, I think, 7 different pitchers to toss that no-hitter, if I remember correctly. All right, so I had a close trivia question, but it pertained to just the postseason in general, not the World Series. Sorry about that.
All right, Jason. So where can people contact you?
Well, you can find me right there. I'm on X, the artist formerly known as Twitter, at DodgerJason. Adam, I promise you, man, I'm trying to get my podcast going, Dodger Blue Podcast, but I'm busy these days, but I'll get it going eventually. Sorry about that.
All right, Jason. So good luck to your Dodgers, and hopefully you bring home the Commissioner's Trophy.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope so. And look, either way, I'm just excited that we're here. I'm hypocritical because I know I've been doom and gloom on them all season. Well, Doc's going to find a way to lose the series again for him, blah, blah, blah. So I'm eating my words. Thank you for making me eat my words, Dodger fans. But either way, Dylan, I'm excited that they're playing, and I'm looking forward to an exciting series. So thank you.